News traveled fast across the galaxy. Within hours of Admiral Roca's retreat, every major power knew what had happened. The story spread like fire through dry grass. A Valan invasion fleet, 500 warships strong, had been stopped by a single human vessel. The mighty Valan Empire had been humiliated by a species they had dismissed as primitive animals in the capital of the Core Federation. Military commanders gathered in emergency session. The Core were the second greatest power in the galaxy, locked in endless war with the Valan for centuries. They had always believed they understood the balance of power. Now everything had changed. "This cannot be accurate," said Grand Marshal Keth, the supreme military leader of the Core. He was an old warrior, covered with scars from countless battles. His rough gray skin showed the marks of a life spent fighting. "One ship cannot defeat 500. "The intelligence is confirmed from multiple sources," replied his chief advisor, a younger officer named Beck. The Valan flagship was disabled with a single shot. Their combined firepower could not scratch the human shields. Admiral Roca retreated rather than face complete destruction. Roca is a fool, but he is not a coward. If he retreated, he had no choice. The commanders exchanged worried glances. The Core had been planning their own expansion toward human space. They had hoped to claim Earth's system before the Valan could reach it. Now those plans seemed foolish. "What do we know about these humans?" Keth demanded. Beck pulled up files that had been ignored for centuries. "Very little, Grand Marshal. Our scouts visited their system once, long ago. They were classified as primitive and forgotten. We never investigated further. Then how do they have technology that surpasses both our empires?" Nobody had an answer. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening in every seat of power. The Myra Collective, a union of trading worlds, called emergency meetings to discuss trade routes. The Sten hierarchy, a military dictatorship that ruled a dozen systems, began reinforcing their borders. The Free Colonies, a loose alliance of independent worlds, sent desperate messages asking for more information. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. What were the humans? And what did they want? Captain Juan sat in his ready room aboard the Silent Dawn, reading reports from humanity's intelligence network. The galaxy was in chaos. Powers that had fought each other for centuries were now united in their fear of Earth. "This is going exactly as planned," said Lieutenant Yuna, who sat across from him. "Partially," Juan replied. "We wanted them scared. We wanted them to know we were not helpless. But fear can lead to desperate actions. Cornered animals are dangerous. What do you think they will do?" Juan considered the question. He had studied galactic politics for decades. He understood how empires thought, how they acted when threatened. The Valan will demand revenge. Their pride will not allow them to accept defeat. They will build a larger fleet and return. He paused. "The Core will try to contact us. They will see an opportunity to gain an ally against their ancient enemy. The smaller powers will wait and watch. And if the Valan and Core unite against us, that is unlikely. They hate each other too much. But we must prepare for every possibility." A signal came from the bridge. Navigator Day's voice filled the room. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission from Earth Command. Priority 1. Put it through." Admiral Park appeared on the screen. Her expression was serious but not worried. "Captain Juan, I have new orders for you. The Council has decided it is time to reveal ourselves fully." Juan sat forward. "Reveal ourselves? How?" "A broadcast to every inhabited system. We will tell the galaxy who we are, what we want, and what we are capable of. No more hiding. No more secrets. Is that wise?" "The other powers may see it as a threat. They already see us as a threat. Better to be clear about our intentions than to let them imagine the worst." Admiral Park's eyes hardened. And there is another reason. We have confirmed that the Valen are calling for a grand alliance. They want every major power to join them against humanity. They claim we are a danger to the entire galaxy. Are any powers responding? Some are considering it. We need to act fast. The broadcast was prepared within hours. Every human colony contributed resources to amplify the signal. When it finally went out, it reached every corner of the galaxy. Captain Juan was chosen to deliver the message. He stood in a simple room aboard the Silent Dawn, facing a camera that would carry his image to billions of beings across countless worlds. He wore his dress uniform, clean and unmarked by medals or decorations. Behind him hung the flag of Earth, a simple blue circle on a white background. He spoke clearly and calmly, and his words were translated into every known language. To all peoples of the galaxy, my name is Captain Juan of the Human Defense Force. I speak on behalf of Earth and all human colonies. He paused, letting the words sink in. For centuries, you have believed that humans were a primitive species, unworthy of attention or respect. This belief was not an accident. It was our choice. We hid our true capabilities because we understood that the galaxy is a dangerous place. We watched your empires rise and fall. We studied your wars. We learned your weaknesses. But we did not hide forever. We prepared. Every year, every decade, every century, we grew stronger. We built ships. We trained soldiers. We developed weapons that your scientists cannot imagine. And now, we are ready. Yesterday, a Valen fleet came to conquer Earth. They brought 500 warships to enslave our people. They expected easy victory. Instead, they found the Silent Dawn, one ship from one colony. They fired everything they had, and their weapons did nothing. We fired once, and their flagship fell. This was not an accident or luck. This was the result of 200 years of preparation. And the Silent Dawn is only the beginning. Juan's voice grew harder. Humanity has 50 colonies spread across the galaxy. Each colony has a defense fleet. Each fleet has ships like the Silent Dawn. We have weapons you have never seen. We have technology you cannot understand. We are not prey, but we are also not predators. We have watched your empires conquer and destroy. We have seen innocent species enslaved and murdered. We have witnessed horrors that would make your hearts weep. And through all of it, we chose not to become like you. Humanity wants peace. We want to trade with your worlds. We want to share knowledge and culture. We want to be part of the galactic community. But we will not beg for acceptance. We will not ask permission to exist. And we will not tolerate aggression. The Valen are calling for an alliance against us. They claim we are a threat to the galaxy. I say this to any power considering their offer. We have no desire for conquest. We have no need for slaves. We have never attacked anyone who did not attack us first. Can the Valen say the same? Can any empire in this galaxy make that claim? Juan stepped closer to the camera. The choice is yours. You can join with the Valen and learn the hard way that humanity is not prey. Or you can extend your hand in friendship and discover that humans make good friends. But know this, whatever you choose, we are no longer hiding. The galaxy has ignored us for too long. That era is over. We are here. We are strong. And we are not going anywhere. The broadcast ended. Silence spread across the galaxy as billions of beings processed what they had heard. On the Valen homeworld, Emperor Kos watched the broadcast with cold fury. His plans for a grand alliance were already falling apart. Several powers had withdrawn their support, unwilling to risk war against an enemy they did not understand. They are bluffing, he said to his advisors. 50 colonies with fleets? Impossible. They are trying to scare us into submission. "Your Majesty," one advisor said carefully, "our intelligence suggests they may not be bluffing. We have traced unusual energy signatures near several uncharted systems. The patterns match the cloaking technology used by the human ship. Then we will destroy them all," the Emperor declared. "Every human colony, every human ship, every human world. They have challenged the Valen Empire. They will learn the cost of that mistake." But even as he spoke, doubt crept into his heart. The humans had waited 200 years to reveal themselves. They had prepared for every possibility. What else were they hiding? On Earth, the response was different. People who had never known about the secret fleet celebrated in the streets. The truth was finally out. Humanity was not alone, and humanity was strong. Captain Juan watched the celebrations from the bridge of his ship. He did not smile. He knew that the hard part was just beginning. "Lieutenant Yuna," he said quietly, "begin preparations for combat patrols. The Valen will test us again. When they do, I want to be ready." "Yes, Captain." The war for humanity's place in the galaxy had begun. 3 months had passed since the broadcast. The galaxy was still adjusting to its new reality. Old alliances were breaking apart. New friendships were forming. Everything was changing, and humanity was at the center of it all. Admiral Roca sat in a prison cell on his homeworld, waiting for his trial. The Emperor blamed him for the disaster at Earth. Someone had to take responsibility for the greatest military humiliation in Valen history. Roca had been chosen. He did not argue. He did not defend himself. He spent his days sitting in silence, thinking about what had happened, thinking about what he had missed. Commander Tira visited him once. She had been cleared of any wrongdoing and promoted to captain of her own ship. The system needed scapegoats, and she was not important enough to be one. "Admiral," she said through the bars of his cell, "I wanted to thank you for listening to me at the end, for ordering the retreat. You saved thousands of lives." Roca laughed bitterly. "I saved lives so that they could die in the next battle. The Emperor is building a new fleet. He's determined to destroy the humans, no matter the cost. Do you think he can succeed?" The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. His 4 eyes stared at the wall of his cell, seeing things that Tira could not see. "Do you remember," he said finally, "the stories of ships disappearing near uncharted space? The probes that never returned? The scouts who vanished without explanation? Yes, we always blame natural phenomena. It was never natural." Roca's voice was hollow. "The humans were there. They were always there, watching us, studying us, eliminating anything that got too close to their secrets." Tira felt ice spread through her chest. "You think they have been active in the galaxy for centuries?" "I know they have. I have had time to think in this cell, to remember things I saw and ignored. Every strange incident, every unexplained event. It all makes sense now." He turned to face her, and she saw something in his eyes that she had never seen before. Fear, yes, but also something like respect. "The humans made fools of us all, Tira. Every empire, every power, every species in the galaxy. We thought we were the masters of the stars. We thought we understood everything. But we were children playing games while adults watched from the shadows. What should we do?" "I do not know. But I know what we should not do. We should not attack them again. We should not provoke them. Every probe we send, they will capture. Every fleet we build, they have probably already counted. They know us better than we know ourselves." Tira left the prison with heavy thoughts. She reported what Roca had said to her superiors, but they dismissed it as the ramblings of a broken man. The Emperor's new fleet continued to grow. In 6 months, it would be ready to launch. Nobody asked whether it would be ready to win. On Earth, Captain Juan walked through the streets of his hometown for the first time in 20 years. The secret nature of his work had kept him away from everything he loved. His family, his friends, the simple pleasures of feeling real sunlight and breathing real air. Now the secrets were out, and he could finally come home. His daughter Nari met him at the spaceport. She was a young officer now, serving on a patrol ship that guarded the outer colonies. She had inherited his calm eyes and his steady hands. She would be a great captain someday. "Father," she said, embracing him. "Welcome home." "It is strange to be here," Juan admitted. "I spent so many years in space that I forgot what grass smells like." They walked together through the city. People recognized Juan from the broadcast and nodded respectfully as he passed. Some called out thanks. Children pointed and whispered to their parents. "You are famous now," Nari said with a smile. "I did not want to be famous. I wanted to protect our home. That is all." They sat together in a small park near the river. Trees swayed in the breeze. Birds sang in the branches. It was peaceful in a way that space never was. Was it worth it? Nari asked. All those years of hiding? All the sacrifice? Juan considered the question carefully. He thought about the generations of soldiers who had served in secret, never knowing if their work would matter. He thought about the scientists who had spent their lives developing technology they could never show anyone. He thought about all the people who had given everything for a future they would never see. "Yes," he said finally. "It was worth it. But the war is not over. The Valen are building a new fleet. Other empires are still deciding what to do. We might have to fight for years. Probably. But we will fight from a position of strength, not weakness. Our people will never be slaves. Our world will never be burned." That was always the goal. Nari was quiet for a moment. "Do you think we can win?" "Against the whole galaxy, if we have to." Juan looked up at the sky, where stars were beginning to appear as the sun set. "The galaxy's empires made a fatal error, Nari. They assumed that a quiet species was a weak species. They believed that hiding meant fear. They never considered that silence could be a strategy." He turned to face his daughter. "We watched them for 200 years. We learned everything about them. Their weapons, their tactics, their psychology, their weaknesses. They know almost nothing about us. That advantage will not disappear overnight. But they will learn. Yes, and when they do, we will be ready with new surprises. That is what humans do. We adapt, we improve, we overcome." He smiled slightly. "The Valen and the Core have been fighting the same war with the same weapons for 300 years. We invented cloaking technology in a decade because we needed it. That is the difference." The sun sank below the horizon. The stars grew brighter. "The galaxy thought they understood the rules," Juan said. "They thought power came from size and aggression. They thought the strong conquered and the weak served. But there is another kind of strength. The strength of patience. The strength of knowledge. The strength of waiting for the perfect moment. And now? Now they learn a new lesson. The species they ignored was never primitive. We were patient. We were smart. We were human." He stood and stretched his tired muscles. "The age of silence is over, Nari. The age of respect has begun. Whatever comes next, we face it together. As a species. As a family. As humans." Nari stood beside him, looking up at the stars that their people would soon travel freely. "The galaxy's bullies finally understand," she said quietly. "Yes, and they will never make that mistake again." Far above them, the silent dawn hung in orbit, watching over the world it had protected. On its bridge, Lieutenant Yuna commanded the night shift. Officers worked quietly at their stations. Screens displayed information from every corner of human space. The war was coming. Everyone knew it. The Valen were too proud to accept defeat. Other empires were too curious to stay out of the conflict. Humanity would have to fight for every inch of respect, but they were ready. They had always been ready. 200 years of preparation had made them strong. 200 years of watching had made them wise. 200 years of silence had taught them patience. Now the silence was broken. Now the galaxy would see what humans could do when they stopped hiding in the darkness between stars. Dozens of human fleets waited for orders. Ships that no one had ever seen. Weapons that no one had ever imagined. Soldiers who had trained their whole lives for this moment. The fatal error of the galactic empires was thinking that humanity was prey. They had looked at a quiet species and seen weakness. They had mistaken patience for fear. They would not make that mistake again. The age of human silence was over. The age of human power had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. And for the first time in his long career of conquer, the Valen flagship was dying. Emergency systems struggled to keep the ship alive. Smoke filled the corridors. Officers ran through the darkness, trying to restore power to critical systems. In the medical bay, doctors treated crew members injured by the impact. Admiral Roca stood in the center of his ruined bridge, surrounded by chaos. His uniform was torn. A cut on his forehead dripped blue blood down his face. His four eyes stared at the main screen, where the human ship hung motionless among the stars. One shot. That ship had fired one shot, and his flagship was crippled. Commander Tira pulled herself up from the floor. Her console was sparking and damaged, but she forced it to work. Admiral, I have damage reports coming in from all sections. Engines are completely destroyed. We are running on backup power. Life support will fail in 6 hours unless we can restore main systems. Roca did not respond. He was still staring at the human ship. Admiral, Tira said more urgently, we need to make a decision. Our fleet is waiting for orders. The Admiral finally turned to face her. His expression was empty, like a man waking from a nightmare. Decision? What decision is there to make? You saw what happened. One shot destroyed our engines. One shot, Tira. Then we must retreat. We must take this information back to the Empire. The Emperor must know what we have found. Roca laughed bitterly. Retreat? I have never retreated. In 50 years of service, I have never run from battle. This is not running from battle, Tira said firmly. This is survival. Our weapons cannot hurt them. Their weapons can destroy us at will. There is no dishonor in recognizing when you are outmatched. On the screens around them, the other ships of the fleet waited nervously. Captains were calling for orders. Some were already turning their ships around, preparing to flee without permission. The human captain's face appeared on the main screen again. His expression had not changed. He looked calm, almost bored, as if disabling the most powerful warship in the Valen Empire was nothing remarkable. Admiral Roca, Captain Juan said, I am still waiting for your answer. Will you withdraw your fleet, or must I continue my demonstration? Roca's pride burned inside him like fire. Every instinct screamed at him to fight, to order his fleet to attack, to die with honor rather than flee in shame. But he was not a fool. He had seen the human shields absorb his entire fleet's firepower without effect. He had watched a single shot kill his engines. He understood, even if he hated to admit, that this battle was already over. What guarantee do I have that you will let us leave? Roca asked. You have my word as a human officer, Juan replied. Withdraw peacefully, and you will not be harmed. Continue your attack, and I will be forced to demonstrate the full capabilities of my vessel. I do not wish to destroy your ships, Admiral, but I will protect my home. Roca looked at Tira. She nodded slowly. Very well, the Admiral said. The words tasted like poison in his mouth. I will order the withdrawal. He turned to his communication officer. Send a message to all ships. The fleet will retreat immediately. Set course for the border of human space. Maximum speed. The order went out across the fleet. Relief flooded through 500 ships. Engines came to life. Navigation systems calculated escape routes. The Great Armada began to turn away from Earth, but not everyone was willing to retreat. Captain Vorn of the Warship Ironclaw stared at his screen with fury in his eyes. He was young for a ship captain, ambitious and aggressive. He had joined this invasion hoping to prove himself in battle. Instead, he was being ordered to run away from a single enemy ship. "This is disgraceful," he growled. "One ship threatens us, and we flee like frightened animals?" His first officer, a cautious veteran named Mora, shook her head. "Captain, you saw what that ship did to the Admiral's flagship. We cannot fight something like that. We cannot fight it with weak tactics and cowardly leadership," Vorn replied. "But we have not tried everything yet." He leaned forward, studying the human ship on his display. "Their shields are strong, yes, but shields have limits. What if we hit them with something they cannot absorb?" Mora felt cold fear creep up her spine. "What are you suggesting?" "A direct collision. Maximum acceleration. Even the strongest shields cannot stop the mass of a warship traveling at full speed. That would destroy us both." "Yes, but it would also destroy them. It would show the galaxy that the Valen do not surrender. It would make me a hero." Mora stared at her captain in horror. "You would kill our entire crew for glory?" "I would die for the Empire," Vorn said proudly. "As should every loyal Valen." He reached for the controls that would send his ship racing toward the human vessel. Mora moved faster. Her hand found the emergency override, locking out the navigation systems. At the same time, she pressed the alarm that summoned security to the bridge. "I'm sorry, Captain," she said, "but I will not let you murder this crew for your ambition." Vorn lunged at her, but security officers burst onto the bridge before he could reach her controls. They grabbed him and forced him to his knees. "Traitor!" Vorn screamed. "I will have you executed for this." "Perhaps," Mora said quietly, "but everyone on this ship will be alive to see it." On the bridge of the Silent Dawn, Lieutenant Yuna tracked a strange movement in the alien fleet. "Captain, one of their ships accelerated toward us for a moment. It appeared to be preparing for a ramming attack." Juan raised an eyebrow. "And now?" "It has stopped. Internal security teams are visible through their hull windows. It appears there was a disagreement about strategy." "Interesting. At least some of them have sense." The alien fleet continued its withdrawal. Ships filed past the Silent Dawn in long columns, giving the human vessel wide clearance. Sensors aboard every alien ship recorded everything they could see, sending data back to the Valen Empire. Navigator Day watched the retreat with satisfaction. "They are leaving, Captain. All ships are moving toward the system boundary. Maintain position until they are gone," Juan ordered. "I want to be certain this is not a trick." Hours passed. The alien fleet shrunk from view as it raced away from Earth. On the damaged Valen flagship, repair crews worked frantically to restore basic functions. Admiral Roca sat in his quarters, writing a report that would shake the foundations of his empire. Finally, the last alien ship crossed into interstellar space and vanished. The Silent Dawn stood alone among the stars, guardian of a world that had never known how close it came to destruction. Captain Juan allowed himself to relax slightly. The immediate crisis was over, but he knew this was only the beginning. "Lieutenant Yuna, status report. All alien vessels have left our system. No damage to the Silent Dawn or any Earth installation. The enemy did not get close enough to threaten civilian populations." "Good. Open a channel to command." The main screen changed to show a room filled with military officers. An older woman with gray hair and sharp eyes sat at the head of the table. This was Admiral Park, commander of the entire Human Defense Force. "Captain Wan," she said, "we have been monitoring the situation. Outstanding work." "Thank you, Admiral. But I must report that this is not over. The Valen retreated, but they will return. They will bring more ships. They will bring allies. The galaxy now knows we exist." "We expected this outcome," Admiral Park replied. "Preparations are already underway. The other colonies are mobilizing their fleets. Earth defense platforms are being activated. We are ready for whatever comes next." Wan nodded. For 200 years, humanity had prepared for this moment. They had built ships in secret. They had trained soldiers in hidden bases. They had developed weapons that the galaxy had never imagined. The time for hiding was over. The time for fighting had begun. "There is something else, Admiral," Wan added. During the retreat, one of their captains attempted a suicide attack. He was stopped by his own crew, but it shows their mindset. They would rather die than accept defeat. That matches our intelligence on Valen psychology. Pride is central to their culture. Being defeated by a species they considered primitive will be difficult for them to accept. They will want revenge. Yes, they will. Admiral Park's expression was grim but determined. "Let them come. We have waited 200 years for this fight. We are ready." The channel closed. Captain Wan turned to face his crew. They had performed perfectly. Not a single mistake during the entire encounter. "You heard the Admiral," he said. "Our work is not finished. The galaxy is about to learn what humanity can do. Make sure we are ready to teach them." The crew returned to their stations with renewed energy. They had won the first battle, but they knew many more battles lay ahead. Outside the viewing windows, Earth hung blue and beautiful in the darkness of space. 8 billion people lived on that small world, most of them completely unaware of what had just happened. They did not know that an alien invasion had been stopped. They did not know that a great war was about to begin, but they would learn. Soon, everyone would learn. The age of human silence was over. Captain Wan had been waiting for this day his entire life. His father had waited before him. His grandfather, too. 3 generations of the Huan family had served in silence, preparing for the moment when humanity would finally reveal itself to the galaxy. He was not a tall man, but he carried himself with quiet authority. His dark hair was starting to turn gray at the temples. His eyes were calm and steady, the eyes of a man who had trained for decades and was finally putting that training to use. The bridge of the Silent Dawn was alive with activity. Officers moved between stations with practiced efficiency. Screens displayed information about the alien fleet in perfect detail. Every weapon, every shield, every communication signal was being recorded and analyzed. Lieutenant Yuna turned in her chair to face her captain. She was young, barely 30 years old, but she had earned her position through skill and dedication. Her family had served humanity's secret fleet for 5 generations. Space was in her blood. "Captain, the alien fleet consists of 500 vessels. I have identified their flagship. It is the largest ship in their formation, positioned near the center." Wan nodded slowly. "What do their weapons look like?" "Plasma-based energy weapons. Missile systems. Standard kinetic projectiles." Yuna paused to check her readings again. "Nothing we have not seen before. Nothing that can penetrate our shields." This was not arrogance. This was fact. For 200 years, humanity had studied every species in the galaxy. They had collected crash probes and disabled ships. They had reverse-engineered alien technology and then improved upon it. The Silent Dawn represented 2 centuries of secret development. Navigator Day spoke up from his station. "Captain, I am detecting communications between their ships. They are using a standard encryption protocol. I have already broken it. Let me hear what they are saying." They pressed a control, and the bridge filled with alien voices. The translation software converted their words into clear English. Impossible. Where did it come from? Sensors show nothing. The space was empty one moment, and then the ship was there. What kind of cloaking technology is this? Even the Core Federation cannot hide ships this large. Admiral Roca is requesting all tactical data on the unknown vessel. Send everything you have. Juan listened to the confusion and fear in those alien voices. He felt no pleasure in their suffering. He was not cruel, but he understood that strength was the only language the galaxy respected. Today, humanity would speak that language. "Open a channel to their flagship," he ordered. "Let them see us." The main screen flickered and changed. A moment later, Juan was looking at the bridge of an alien warship. Blue-skinned creatures with 4 eyes stared back at him with expressions of shock and confusion. One of them, dressed in an elaborate uniform covered with medals, stepped forward. "Unknown vessel," the alien said. "I am Admiral Roca of the Valen Empire. You are interfering with official imperial business. Identify yourself and withdraw immediately, or you will be destroyed." Well, Juan studied the Admiral with interest. He saw the medals, the proud posture, the confident voice. He also saw the tension around the alien's eyes, the slight tremor in his hands. Admiral Roca was afraid. He was trying to hide it, but he was afraid. "Admiral Roca," Juan replied, his voice calm and unhurried. "I am Captain Juan of the Human Defense Force. You have entered sovereign human space with a hostile fleet. You have positioned weapons against our home world. This is an act of war." The Admiral's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. "Human? You are. Human? Yes. That is impossible. Humans are primitives. They have no space fleet. They have no cloaking technology. They have nothing like—" Roca gestured helplessly at the massive ship surrounding Juan. "You believe we are primitives because that is what we wanted you to believe." Silence fell across both bridges. Juan let the words sink in. He watched understanding slowly dawn on the Admiral's face. 200 years ago, Juan continued, your scouts visited our system. They found a species just beginning to explore space. They decided we were unimportant. They left and never came back. We received the reports, Roca said slowly. Your technology was centuries behind ours. Your scouts saw what we wanted them to see. Our ancestors understood something important, Admiral. When you are surrounded by predators, you do not announce your presence. You hide, you watch, you learn, and you grow strong in secret. The translation carried Juan's words to every ship in the Valen fleet. Officers and soldiers listened in stunned silence as everything they believed about the galaxy shifted beneath their feet. On the silent dawn, Lieutenant Yuna watched the alien reactions with satisfaction. This moment had been planned for generations. Every word Captain Juan spoke had been carefully chosen. For 200 years, Juan continued, we have watched your empire. We have watched you conquer innocent worlds. We have watched you enslave entire species. We have watched you burn cities and murder millions. And we have prepared. Roca's voice cracked slightly. Prepared for what? For this moment. The moment when you finally came for us. Juan stood straighter, and his calm voice took on a harder edge. Admiral Roca, I am giving you one chance. Order your fleet to withdraw from human space immediately. Return to your empire. Tell your emperor what you have seen here today. Tell him that Earth is not a target. Tell him that humanity is not prey. Roca's face twisted with anger. Fear and pride battled inside him. He had never retreated from battle. He had never been threatened by a species he considered inferior. His entire identity was built on the certainty of Valen's superiority. "You are one ship," he spat. "We are 500. Your impressive entrance changes nothing. You cannot possibly stand against our entire fleet." Juan had expected this response. Pride was a powerful force. It made intelligent beings do stupid things. "Very well," he said. "Then let me show you what one human ship can do." He ended the communication and turned to his weapons officer. Sue was a small woman with short black hair and eyes that burned with fierce concentration. Her hands rested on her console, ready to unleash weapons that the galaxy had never seen. "Target their flagship," Juan ordered. "Engines only. I want them disabled, not destroyed." "Yes, Captain." Sue's fingers danced across her controls. "Target locked. Weapon charged. Ready to fire on your command." Juan looked at the tactical display. 500 alien warships were turning their weapons toward the Silent Dawn. Energy readings spiked as plasma cannons charged. Missile tubes opened. Thousands of weapons prepared to fire. "They are targeting us, Captain," Navigator Day reported calmly. "All ships in the fleet are locking weapons." "Shields to maximum," Juan ordered. "Shields at maximum power." Full coverage confirmed. "They are firing," Lieutenant Yuna announced. All ships firing simultaneously. The view screen showed a wall of light rushing toward them. Plasma beams, missiles, kinetic rounds. Everything the Valen fleet had was flying at the Silent Dawn in one massive wave. The barrage struck the ships. Shields, and nothing happened. The energy dissipated harmlessly against barriers that the Valen could not comprehend. Missiles exploded without causing damage. Kinetic rounds bounced away like insects hitting a window on the bridge. Nobody even felt a vibration. Navigator Day checked his instruments twice, then a third time. "Captain, their weapons did not even register on our shield monitors. The energy impact was too small to measure." "As expected," Juan said quietly. On the Valen flagship, Admiral Roca watched his entire fleet's firepower accomplish nothing. His hands gripped his command chair so hard that his blue skin turned pale. "Impossible," he whispered. "No shields are that strong. Nothing is that strong." Commander Tiro was frantically working her console. "Admiral, I am getting detailed readings now. Their shield technology is completely unknown. It is operating on principles we have never encountered. Our weapons cannot touch them." Roca's mind raced. In 300 years of conquest, the Valen had never encountered anything like this. Their weapons had always worked. Their superior technology had always guaranteed victory. Until now. "Captain," Sue said aboard the Silent Dawn, "your orders were to fire on your command." "I am still waiting." Juan watched the alien fleet on his display. They had fired everything they had. Now they waited, confused and terrified, for humanity's response. "Fire," Juan said. A single beam of light shot from the Silent Dawn. It crossed the distance between ships in less than a heartbeat. It struck the Valen flagship with surgical precision. The engines of the Endless. Victory exploded in a shower of sparks and debris. Power failed across the massive ship. Emergency lights flickered to life. The great warship drifted dead in space. One shot. One hit. One flagship disabled. Admiral Roca was thrown from his chair by the impact. He crashed to the deck as his ship died around him. Alarms screamed. Officers shouted in panic. The bridge filled with smoke and the smell of burning equipment. He pulled himself up and stared at the viewing screen. His flagship, the most powerful ship in the Valen Empire, had been killed by a single shot. Captain Juan's face appeared on the damaged screen. "That was your one warning, Admiral. The next shot will not be so gentle." Juan's eyes were cold as ice. Order your fleet to withdraw, now." Roka looked around at his ruined bridge, his terrified crew, his dead ship. He thought about his 500 vessels and the aliens who had built something that made them all obsolete. The stars had always belonged to the strong. This was the first lesson every species learned when they reached beyond their home worlds. The weak were conquered. The strong did the conquering. For 300 years, this simple truth had shaped the entire galaxy. Admiral Roka stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Endless Victory. He was tall for a Valan, with pale blue skin and 4 eyes that could see in complete darkness. His military uniform was covered with medals from dozens of campaigns. He had crushed rebellions on 7 worlds. He had burned cities that refused to surrender. He had never known defeat. Today would be another easy victory. Through the massive viewing window, Roka watched his armada take position. 500 warships floated in perfect formation. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Together, they represented the greatest military force the Valan Empire had ever assembled for a single conquest. Their target was a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary yellow star. The planet was called Earth by its inhabitants. Valan scouts had visited the system 200 years ago and reported finding primitive creatures who had barely learned to fly within their own atmosphere. The report had been filed and forgotten. Earth was too far from important trade routes. Its resources were unremarkable. Its people were irrelevant. But now the Valan Empire needed to expand. The endless war with the Core Federation had drained resources from a dozen conquered worlds. New territories were required. New slaves were needed for the factories and mines. Earth would provide both. Commander Tira walked up to stand beside the Admiral. She was younger than Roka, with sharp features and quick eyes that missed nothing. She had served under him for 15 years and had learned to read his moods perfectly. "The fleet is in position, Admiral," she reported. "All ships report ready for combat operations." Roka made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Combat? There will be no combat today, Commander. These humans have no space fleet. They have no planetary shields. They have nothing that can challenge us. The latest intelligence reports suggest they have made some technological progress since the original survey," Tira said carefully. "They have established small colonies on nearby planets and moons within their system. Progress?" Roka turned all 4 eyes toward her. "Even if they have advanced, they are still 300 years behind us. Their best weapons will bounce off our shields like pebbles against a mountain." Tira nodded, but something bothered her. She had reviewed the intelligence reports herself. The humans had indeed progressed, but the details were strangely unclear. Valan probes sent to monitor the system had a tendency to malfunction. Ships that ventured too close to human space sometimes disappeared without explanation. These incidents were always blamed on natural phenomena, asteroid impacts, solar flares, equipment failures. But Tira had noticed a pattern. The disappearances were not random. They happened whenever ships got close enough to gather detailed information about human capabilities. "Admiral," she said, "I am detecting unusual energy readings near the 3rd planet's largest moon." Roka glanced at his tactical display. He saw the readings she mentioned, faint pulses of energy that did not match any known natural phenomenon. He dismissed them with a wave of his hand. "Solar interference," he said. "This star produces more radiation than most. It confuses our sensors. With respect, Admiral, I have never seen solar radiation produce readings like these." Then, that it is some primitive human technology, probably a mining operation or a communication array. It does not matter. Roka straightened his uniform and addressed the entire bridge crew. "Begin the approach. Standard conquest formation. I want orbital bombardment positions within the hour." The crew responded instantly. Officers shouted orders. Navigation systems calculated approach vectors. Weapons systems began charging for the attack. Across the void of space, 499 other ships received the same commands. The Armada began to move toward Earth like a great wave of death rolling toward a helpless shore. Admiral Roca felt satisfaction warm his chest. This conquest would add another medal to his uniform. The Emperor himself would praise his efficiency. Perhaps he would be promoted to Grand Admiral. Perhaps he would be given command of the war against the Core Federation. He imagined the humans below, going about their simple lives, completely unaware of the destruction approaching them. They were probably celebrating some primitive festival or fighting among themselves over resources. Primitive species always fought among themselves. It was why they remained primitive. "Admiral," Tira said again, her voice tight with concern. "The energy readings are increasing." Roca sighed with irritation. "Commander, I understand your caution. It is why I value you. But you must learn to distinguish between real threats and sensor ghosts. The humans are not a threat. They cannot be a threat. They are barely more advanced than animals. The readings are coming from directly ahead of us," Tira insisted. "From empty space between the fleet and the planet." This finally caught Roca's attention. He studied the tactical display more carefully. Tira was right. The energy readings were not coming from the moon or the planet. They were coming from a point in space where nothing should exist. "Scan that area," he ordered. "Full sensor sweep." The sensor officer worked his console frantically. "Admiral, there is nothing there. Empty space. But the energy readings are definitely real. They are growing stronger every second." Roca felt the first hint of unease enter his mind. In 300 years, the Valen had encountered 47 different species. They had conquered all of them. They knew every trick, every tactic, every desperate strategy that prey used against predators. But this was something new. "All ships, hold position," Roca commanded. The order went out across the fleet. 500 warships stopped their advance and waited. The bridge fell silent. Every officer watched the tactical display. The energy readings continued to grow. Something was happening in that empty patch of space. Something big, then space itself seemed to tear open. A ship appeared where nothing had been moments before. It did not fly in from somewhere else. It did not drop out of faster-than-light travel. It simply materialized as if it had been there all along, hiding in plain sight. The ship was enormous. Admiral Roca had seen many warships in his long career. He had commanded the largest vessels in the Valen fleet. But this ship was something beyond his experience. It was easily 3 times larger than his flagship. Its hull was made of a dark material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange symbols covered its surface, symbols that no Valen database could identify. "What is that?" someone whispered. Roca could not answer. His mouth had gone dry. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly as his brain tried to process what he was seeing. The ship hung between the Valen Armada and Earth like a guardian standing before a gate. It was clearly artificial. It was clearly a warship. And it was clearly not primitive. "Impossible," Roca finally managed to say. "The humans cannot have built this. It is impossible." Commander Tira's hands were shaking as she worked her console. "Admiral, I am reading power signatures from that vessel. They are higher than anything in our records. Higher than our entire fleet combined. That cannot be accurate. Check your equipment." "I have checked it 3 times. The readings are accurate." Tira looked up at him, and for the first time in 15 years of service, he saw fear in her eyes. "Admiral, what have we found?" Roca did not have an answer. He stared at the massive vessel blocking his path. Somewhere in his mind, a voice whispered that he had made a terrible mistake. The humans were not primitive. They had never been primitive. They had simply been watching, waiting, preparing. And now the watching was over. On the bridge of the silent dawn, Captain Juan stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His face showed no emotion as he studied the alien fleet on his display. 500 ships. Thousands of weapons pointed at his home. Millions of soldiers ready to invade. Lieutenant Yuna sat at her station nearby, her fingers flying across her controls as she gathered information. "They've stopped their advance, Captain," she reported. "They are holding position. I think we surprised them." Juan allowed himself a small smile. "Good," he said quietly. "Let them be surprised. Let them wonder. Let them fear." For 200 years, humanity had watched the galaxy. They had learned its secrets. They had studied its wars. They had prepared for this moment. Now the moment had arrived.